for stress, frustration, and maybe eventually disaster.
Mhm.
Developing a business financial plan may not be your strongest skill, but it shouldn't be avoided. If you'd like to know how to easily implement a budget, yes, it's not a dirty word, and have a clear picture every day of your finances, then keep listening. I'd like to introduce you to my guest today on Make It Click, financial coach Kelly Kellem. Welcome, Kelly, to Make It Click.
Thank you so much, Christine. I'm so happy to be here, and thanks for inviting me on.
Well, now, Kelly, okay, so as I just mentioned, the word budget. Let's just put that on the table. It's not a dirty word. It's not a ball and chain, as you've referred to it sometimes. You know that it's not a ball and chain thing. Let's talk about that budget and why do people why are they reluctant to create a budget and follow something with the and this can be with business and personal, I think,
Yes,
is the problem.
yes. I think people think of a budget almost like a workout plan or a diet, that nasty word. This thing that they've tried before, they didn't think it worked, or they tried it for a while and they didn't really stick with it, and then everything became a mess again. And really, when you're talking about your finances, you have to know where you are because Murphy always seems to visit, right? So, I talk to people about budgets and I often tell my own story because this is how I became a financial coach. My husband and we both found out that we were having surgery at the same time. I had scheduled some surgery for me, and my husband then found out that he had to have a hip replacement right away. His company wouldn't let him keep working if he was walking around with a cane, which was what he was doing to get by. So we were both off work suddenly for 3 months. We thought we had enough money to get through. We knew it was gonna be tight. We had no idea. We weren't To make matters even worse, we not only weren't working with a budget, we weren't even in the same bank account. Somehow or another, we had never combined our bank accounts, and we were doing this, "Okay, well, we have this one due, you pay it out of your account, and then I'll pay this out of my account." Did not work, and neither did the finances during the time that we were off. Um, it was a never again moment. We thought we were going to lose our home. Our marriage was suffering because, the stress of finances. And really, that is the number one reason that marriages and businesses run into a lot of stress. So that's when I became a financial coach. And because I wanted to help other people avoid that never again moment. So, really, as I started working with people, I realized how few people had a budget. And people think they have a budget because they have a few things written down on a page and they know exactly what their expenses are going to be. Or they have something in their head where they know roughly where their bank account always is. But like you said at the beginning, just knowing the bank balance isn't enough. You also have to know exactly where your money's going. And, we all, especially around the holidays, like we all start to say, oh, I'm going to buy this, this gift for somebody and this gift for that person. And we think that there's enough money in the account. And then pretty quickly, the money has dwindled down and you don't really understand where it has all gone, or you don't realize that you're putting yourself in a situation where you're running tight on your
Mhm.
budget and you didn't think
Yeah.
that was going to happen.
Yeah, I can't tell you how many times over the years when I would be talking to a prospective client about working on a project with them, and they're, trying to make that decision of, is this the right thing? Or I would say, well, is this something you have in your budget? And I can't tell you, I don't know if I ever heard anybody say that they looked at their budget and, oh, this is, they didn't even, there was no budget.
Right.
Here they are in business, and they were just pulling numbers out of the air, and it's like, "Well, let's see, this is gonna be this mu oh, can I do this today? Oh, yeah," you know? And that is so sad. It is so sad. that more people, don't take that time. And as I said too, it might not be your forte, it might not be a great skill, but I don't think it takes a lot. I mean, I think you had mentioned that you could create a budget rather easily.
Yes.
Well, and in talking about businesses, you say that you've worked with businesses that didn't know where their money was. So
Yes.
tell us about that as you started to work with business owners and help them to see where their money was at every day.
I think the aha moment for me about how big the problem really is that people don't have budgets. I was contacted by a gentleman who, I'm not going to give a lot of details about his business, but he and his wife had separate businesses. They were quite successful. He actually owned several gyms, and we all know what happened to gyms during COVID, especially the beginning. But he wanted to find out how he could, uh, have a better sense of where his finances were. And I said, "Okay, where's your, show me your numbers." And he didn't have his numbers because his accountant only gave them to him once a quarter. He had no idea where they were on the bottom line. He had no idea, if he still had a lot of expenses going out, money going out the door with a lot of expenses other than the overhead of the obvious rent on the gyms and keeping the lights on, which in some areas he might not even have been keeping the lights on because they might have, completely closed the gym. He had no idea, and it was going to be another month before he was going to see his numbers. And I said, "Okay, well then let's meet in a month because I sorry, I can't help you without having some idea where your numbers are." But usually when we're talking about a budget for a business, we also want forecasting. And I have worked with some small businesses that, really just you said, Christine, if I take on this project, if I decide to buy this piece of equipment, can I really afford it right now? And that's more than just saying, okay, the payments are going to be $1,500 a month or $20,000 a month, whatever the case may be, based on the business. It's really 6 months from now, a year from now. Where is that going to put my business? Am I not going to be profitable if I don't keep or maintain a certain income from a certain revenue from clients? So forecasting is huge. It's not just knowing how much you have in the money right now, I mean in the bank right now, and adding this item in and as another fixed expense. Actually, you have a guest coming on at the end of December, I think, Maury Mendez, who we're both familiar with, and she has a product that I'm actually starting to use, and that is the Smart Cash Sheet that actually does the forecasting for 6 months out. So people can see whether it's for personal reasons of taking a vacation or taking on a project with business, you can see what that's going to do to your bottom line and make informed decisions.
Yeah, yeah. So Kelly, I believe you're familiar with Profit First, and
Yes.
that you use this to help people to easily create a budget. Well, as easy as it can be to create a budget. Could you give our listeners a few steps or tips as to how they could get started on building their budget?
Sure. In addition to knowing exactly what your fixed expenses are, first of all, we need to have an emergency fund. Think back to my situation, my never again moment of not having an emergency fund and something happens. Like I said, Murphy always visits. So they need to have an emergency fund and be adding to that emergency fund as part of the fixed expense if they don't have a good sized emergency fund. And that really varies. How much is good sized really varies from the size of the business. But when we talk about profit first, people often don't think of themselves as a fixed expense. We're in business not just to make money, but to live, right?
Mhm.
Most of us depend on our income from our biz paycheck. So we have to put that in the first slot with the expenses. So we're paying ourselves, we're paying our taxes. And by the way, I always recommend that we have taxes in a separate account so that it can't be
Mhm.
touched. And a lot of people balk at that, but it's just really the smart way to do it so you don't end up at the end of the quarter or however you pay your taxes without enough money. And then after we're talking fixed expenses, yourself as a payroll, and then your taxes, then you can look at reinvesting in the business. And that's where buying equipment or taking some classes or getting a coach would come from. But you have to take the profit first and use that to pay the expenses. Then whatever profit is left, you use that toward expansion and reinvesting in the business. That's the
Mhm.
essential formula for a business budget. There's a lot more to it, of course, and that's where, I work with the businesses or individuals, especially if somebody is a sole proprietor. It's definitely something that most people don't have a skill for, and most people can benefit from at least one session with someone who can sit down and say, okay, this is the direction you need to go, but definitely thinking of always making the business profitable for all the expenses before reinvesting in the business and taking on those extra projects.
Yeah. Well, and I like that you mentioned, the taxes, have putting that aside. That's another one of those stories that you hear too often that, people have the tax man after them because they didn't pay the taxes. That's so sad. Well, Kelly, I know that we've been talking about business here and finance and everything, but you do have a really special niche. Tell us just briefly about that, and I think you have something to offer our audience.
I do. Thank you, Christine. Uh, my heart is with working with families of college bound students to help them pay for college without breaking the bank or raiding their retirement. And I just really love doing that because, first of all, I'm a stepmom and I have students of my own who are one who's getting ready to go to college and one who is in high school, another one that's in high school. And so this actually grew out of my financial coaching when we were trying to help them understand it makes a lot more sense to pay for college some other way than with loans. And so I've worked with several students and several families to make this happen, and we've been really successful. I've been able to save an average of $20,000 for my clients. So it's just where my heart is. And what I wanted to offer to the listeners today is a one sheet that I have, but it's really a valuable one sheet. It's 20 questions you need to ask on a college visit. A lot of them are questions that people either are too shy to ask or just don't think about on the visit. And while you're there, looking at the campus and talking to the faculty and the admissions and financial aid people, you need to ask these questions.
And they can get that by emailing you, is that correct?
Yes, my email is kelly at yourcollegemoneycoach.com. And I'll be happy to get that out to anybody who emails me and asks for it.
All right. Well, Kelly, I do have one last question for you, and this is really about you and your business, and when you think of everything that you've gone through to get where you are today, is there something that comes to mind that you feel is the one thing that you've done that you've learned, or maybe it's some technology that has helped you to build your business? Is there anything in particular that you would like to share with our audience?
Don't do it alone. Really don't do it alone. I'm not the most tech savvy. I have needed hand holding through some some technology. But bigger than that is whether it be marketing or understanding how to organize your business or improving your productivity like you do, anything about business, don't do it alone. There's also a mindset aspect, and being in community is huge. So finding a coach and finding a community is just I'm not going to do it again. So that's really my biggest tip.
Well, that was a wonderful tip, Kelly, and thank you for being my guest on Make It Click.
Thank you so much for having me. I've enjoyed